Geordies, welcome back to another transfer episode for Newcastle United. We've just been looking at centre-back options for our right centre-back position. Today we're going to be looking at right wingers, but it's a Premier League edition. Most of these players you already know about, so we will be talking about their strengths, weaknesses, looking at statistics. You don't need me to tell you how these players play, but the players in question we're going to be looking at Bryan Mbeumo, Dibling, and Noni Madueke. But firstly, it must be said that Jacob Murphy's having an excellent season. One of his biggest strengths is his first thought is, how can I supply Alexander Isak? And I love that quality in him. He's extremely unselfish and he's really having a great season. So this might not be about replacing Jacob Murphy, but it's about adding more squad depth in that right wing position, because realistically, we've only got Jacob Murphy. But before we begin and get settled in this episode, I want to hear more options. There's plenty more options out there. Even in the Premier League, we could look at Semenyo, we could look at Anthony Elanga, and then across Europe, there's loads of options. So I want to hear your thoughts. Who would you like to be added in the next couple of series? But let's start with Bryan Mbeumo, and I'm guessing many of you that are watching this is your preferred preference of right winger. 25 years old, he was born in 1999. That comes with a lot of experience and he's still not reached his peak. He scored 15 goals, provided 5 assists in 25 Premier League games this season. He's missed 104 days, 20 games through injury, which is pretty impressive considering he's 25, and I often say the best ability is availability. So he's consistent as well in his game time. He's valued at about 50 million. So what are his strengths? What will he bring? And I think one of his biggest strengths, and you can't quantify it, is his spatial awareness. His ability to exploit and find space is absolutely exceptional. When he's in possession, he often likes to cut inside to create with teammates or to open up an angle for a strike himself. He's an excellent chance creator and he's got a knack for finishing. He ranks 5th in the Premier League for shot creating actions, which is very impressive considering he's playing for a team like Brentford. No disrespect for Brentford, but when they lose out on Tony, you would expect their attacking display to decrease, but it actually hasn't with a player like Bryan Mbeumo. He's technically good. He's a superb ball carrier. He ranks 11th in the Premier League for progressive carries. That's an amazing team for a team that doesn't dominate possession. So he's got that ability to drop deep, grab the ball, and really progress his team into that final third. He's got pace, which also makes him a threat in behind, and he's a perfect option for a counter-attacking quick transitional team like Newcastle United. He's fast, he's direct with the ball at his feet, and he brings a lot of incisiveness that would bring an impetus to Newcastle's attack. One of his greatest strengths is his acceleration. He's so good at just dropping his shoulder and accelerating away from players, which pretty much packs opponents' players out the games. You look at his assists and you might say 5's not very great in the Premier League, but if you look at his XG numbers, it suggests that he creates a lot of high quality chances. So if you put him in a team with a better striker, a better finisher, a better prolific goal scorer like Alexander Isak, those assists would go up because he's ranked very highly for expected assists, which shows that he gets in dangerous positions and he's able to create dangerous chances. He just doesn't have the natural goal scorer now that Ivan Toney's left the team for somebody to pull away those chances. What are his weaknesses? Sometimes he can be sloppy in possession, so his ball retention skills can let him down at times. His passing accuracy and his link-up play in the final third, and also use of his weaker foot. If he was more confident on his weaker foot, he would be a lot more dangerous. But I love his ability and his willingness to get inside the box, so he just poses that extra threat when it comes to finishing chances, and that's why he scored 15 goals this season. He compared to Jacob Murphy when it comes to progressive carries, and I think in a transitional team like Newcastle United, you want your players to be progressive, because a progressive carry pretty much puts your team in a different section of the field. So Mbeumo's got that capability of moving his team into the final third, whereas Jacob Murphy, he's not quite as good at it, but he does dribble a lot more, so that's a lot aimless dribbling. But when it comes to assists, Jacob Murphy's way out, but in terms of chance creations, Bryan Mbeumo is better. So this is what I'm saying. When you look at assists, it's all about the striker you're supplying. If Bryan Mbeumo had an Alexander Isak in his team, he would have a lot more assists than what he does currently, because he's creating a higher and better quality of chances. So what that statistic's shown me is Bryan Mbeumo might not carry the ball as much as Jacob Murphy, but his carries are a lot more proficient and impactful. When we talk about players being impactful, Dibling's burst on the scene at Southampton. He might not have burst on the scene in terms of scoring many goals or creating many assists, but his style of play has just wowed some players, and you know there's a lot of potential in Tyler Dibling. So he's currently at Southampton. He's 19, born in 2006. He's made 25 Premier League appearances, scoring 2 goals, providing no assists. He's missed 13 days and 1 game through injury, and his market value is about 25 million. Although I was listening to TalkSport this morning, and they said he was valued at 100 million. I'm sorry, but 100 million is ridiculous in my opinion. What are his strengths? Well, we all know he's a superb ball carrier. His progressive carries are outrageous for his age. He often moves the teams into different and dangerous positions. He's great on the ball retention, and he's got a wonderful ball appreciation. I love how he receives on the half turn, always looking to play forward, always looking to be dynamic, and that's exactly what Newcastle United need in their team. He's dynamic presence in central areas, but also wide areas, which makes him lethal on the break. He's a player that's not really a touchline winger. At Southampton, he's got the license to drift inside, use the half channels, and be effective in those central areas. He's versatile as well. He's comfortable as a number 10, but he can also play on the wing, and he's got the ability to pick out a pass, but also be that tricky winger where he manipulates players and just glides past players for fun. He's a big threat in that final third, and he's got the ability to just eliminate opponents out the game just for his sheer dribbling and his ability to glide around the glass. It's beautiful viewing, but he does need to add a little bit more end product to his overall game, and you've got a wonderful footballer. There's still a lot of rawness and he lacks experience, but defensively, he works hard out of possession, but there is still room for growth in terms of tenacity, his angling of his tackles, and his positioning. Now, like I say with all young players, their decision-making needs to improve in the final third. Sometimes he can be over-ambitious in his dribbling when it's better just to pop off the ball and look for a 1-2 combination or play an incisive pass. But when it comes to overall technical ability and profiles you can work with, Tyler Dibling is outstanding. So Tyler Dibling is one of those players for the future. He remains a high potential signing. He's an unbelievable talent, but he does need refinements in his game in terms of his playmaking skills, when to release the ball at the right time, but also his defensive contributions. Now, I'm not saying he doesn't work hard, because he absolutely does. The awareness and how to defend in specific scenarios. Now, this is how he compares to Jacob Murphy, and I kind of feel harsh for him here because these statistics don't tell the full story. Because you've got to think he's playing in a team that's on course for the record minimum amount of points in the Premier League, and Southampton have been absolutely terrible this season. So it's difficult to stand out and be a big creator and get loads of assists when your team just naturally don't score a lot of goals. But when it comes to getting on the ball and trying to make things happen and progressing his team into a different third, Tyler Dibling is absolutely outstanding. And that's the thing I would be looking at here. What's he like in adversity? And he's playing in the poorest team in the Premier League, and he's still got that willingness, that hunger to get on the ball, to make things happen. Yes, he can brush up on his final decision making, but that'll come with experience. So I kind of think when you're looking at these statistics, if you put him in a better team with a better environment, with a better style of play, with better players that are more comfortable playing in the Premier League, those statistics will naturally improve. So you've got to kind of feel the team he's playing for. He's playing under 2 different managers. It's his first season in the Premier League. It's his first season in senior football. So it's going to be difficult for him to be the big creator in a small team. But when it comes to getting on the ball, like I say, I've got absolutely no worries about him playing at a higher level. Then we'll move on to Noni Madueke, a player that divides opinions amongst Chelsea fan bases, but also Premier League fans. And I've got to admit, I'm a fan of Noni Madueke. Is there still improvements? Absolutely. But there's one thing I love about this guy, and that's his willingness to keep on trying. Me personally, I want my wingers to constantly dribble at his man, try and beat his man, isolate his fullback in one-on-one situations and try and get past him. And that's what you get from Noni Madueke. There's inconsistencies, but when you give those instructions to your wingers, there's always going to be times where he doesn't beat his man. But he's 23 at the moment, born in 2002. He's got 7 goals, 3 assists in 23 Premier League games this season. He's missed 359 days through injury, 78 games as well. And his market value is around 40 million. I know we did look to loan Madueke last season with an obligation or an option to buy. PSR rules said we couldn't do it. So I know Eddie Howe likes this player and thinks he can get a tune out of this player. One thing I will say about Eddie Howe, he's very good at strengthening players' weaknesses. And I think with a player like Noni Madueke, there's a lot of quality there that could be worked on and refined to really get the maximum out of him. But he's known for his silky dribbling, his quick footwork and direct running style. He's shown a consistent willingness to drive an opponent forward, taking on his players, creating imbalances. And this is exactly what it's all about. If you can get past your man, it ultimately creates imbalances in the opponent's shape, because that means the centre-back's now got to come across, and that leaves Isak one-on-one. So different situations like that, having the willingness and the eagerness to beat your man, creates imbalances in the opponent's shape, and therefore you find it easier to break them down and create opportunities to score. But he's got flair, close control, acceleration, his agility is excellent, and he's got strength in what makes him a menacing threat in attacking situations or counter-attacks. Noni Madueke is a little bit different to Tyler Dibling and Bryan Mbeumo in terms of his positioning. He's a touchline winger. He wants to hug that touchline. The reason he does it is because he wants to receive the ball out wide, so he can isolate his fullback. He cuts inside, but he doesn't cut inside until he's very close to the penalty area. Whereas with Tyler Dibling and Bryan Mbeumo, they're happy to cut inside a lot earlier to combine with teammates. Whereas Noni Madueke wants to get in and around that 18-yard box before he cuts in on his left foot, and then he opens an angle for a strike. So it's a little bit different than what Bryan Mbeumo and Tyler Dibling will bring you, but he's perfect for a team that plays in quick counter-attacking situations, in a quick transitioning team. He's fast, he's direct with the ball at his feet, and he brings incisive to the attack. And he's also got a tendency to not always rely on ball manipulation. And I often say that young footballers always want to move the ball in terms of trying to attack and take on an opponent. Noni Madueke can turn past players just by his body manipulation, and that just gives him an extra dimension when he's driving with the ball. There is a lot of weaknesses with Noni Madueke. He's incisive passing, his dribbling is inconsistent, and his decision making in the final third needs to improve. Sometimes you look to finish rather than trying to create. Sometimes you'll look to pass when there's an angle for a shot, just making the wrong decisions in crucial moments. But again, that'll come with experience. One of Noni Madueke's best qualities is getting his teammates into dangerous positions. Because he's such a good ball carrier and got great dribbling skills, he often finds himself in dangerous situations. So if you can improve your decision making, his output is going to be incredible. He ranks first in the Premier League for carries into the penalty area. So I often mention that he doesn't really combine with teammates outside the penalty area. He often waits until he reaches the penalty area and then he cuts inside. That's exactly why, because he wants to reach that penalty area, get closest to goal as possible. Then he opens up an angle for a strike. That can be down to manager instructions, but it can also be down to what he's comfortable with as well. So how does Madueke compare to Jacob Murphy? And again, you can see Jacob Murphy high on the assist list. But Noni Madueke, just like Bryan Mbeumo, is creating more and more quality chances than what Jacob Murphy does. He's an excellent dribbler. He ranks really highly for attacking actions, carries, dribbles, non-penalty goals, XG as well as XA. So just a little bit of refinement and confidence in his decision-making, and then you've got one hell of a player. Now, I thought it would be interesting to look at their heat maps as well, because it really tells a full story of what type of player you're getting. If you look at Noni Madueke in the bottom right, he's very much a touchline winger, like I mentioned, receiving the ball with chokes on his boots and then driving to his opponent. Look at Bryan Mbeumo. He wants to use the inside channels, and I actually think that'll work well in Newcastle United, because it'll allow Isak to not be as isolated. And we'll often see Gordon do this on the left-hand side, so it'll allow him to combine with Isak a lot more. Therefore, you'll be able to create a lot more. Kind of like that chemistry he's got with Wissa. Wissa and Bryan Mbeumo have got brilliant chemistry, even if they're not playing the ball to each other. They've got this telepathic sense of where each other are, and I think he can build up that relationship, Alexander Isak. But the likes of Jacob Murphy, he's a little bit more of a touchline winger as well, but he does like to come inside, but obviously not as much as Bryan Mbeumo or Tyler Dibling. Tyler Dibling and Bryan Mbeumo have got the similar qualities of where they like to be on a football pitch. But I just thought that was interesting reading, because Jacob Murphy's kind of a blend between the two, but Bryan Mbeumo is really aggressive in those inside channels. And having a winger that's comfortable receiving in those inside channels, like Bryan Mbeumo, like Tyler Dibling, then you're going to allow your right back to overlap a lot more. So this would actually work well in the Newcastle United system. So I put a graph together to compare their winger profiles. And if we look at expected goals and expected assists, Noni Madueke is flying high at 90.1. But what I will say is it's difficult for Tyler Dibling, probably Bryan Mbeumo, because they don't have that quality striker in front of them that they could supply, that they would put away those chances. When it comes to assists, Jacob Murphy, I said his biggest quality is, can I supply Alexander Isak? That's his only thought when he receives a ball. And that's what I like about Jacob Murphy. Attacking actions, Noni Madueke, he's direct, he's always facing forward, and he wants to drive at his opponents, and that's why he's got the highest attacking output. Shot creating actions is a very interesting one. You've got Noni Madueke, that's a standout, but Bryan Mbeumo and Jacob Murphy, actually they're all quite high in terms of shot creating actions. Expected assists. Now this is an interesting one because you've got Bryan Mbeumo that is higher than anybody else, but he's only got 5 assists. One thing I will say about that, when it comes to creating opportunities or looking for that final ball, it's not about the man in possession and where he places a ball. It's about the runner and the mover. The mover dictates where that ball ends up. So if you've got a good, solid, very intelligent mover like Alexander Isak, he'll be dictating where you play that ball. So considering Bryan Mbeumo hasn't got that, Tyler Dibling hasn't got that, I do like Jackson's movement for Noni Madueke. But again, if you put Tyler Dibling and Bryan Mbeumo next to Alexander Isak, his output's going to be higher. When it comes to key passes, Jacob Murphy's ranking high amongst them all. And I said his first thought is, how can I find or supply Alexander Isak? And that's probably why he ranks highly for key passes, because he attempts them more often. But it's really interesting when you put them in as a side-by-side comparison, because then you'll be able to break down exactly what type of profile you're getting. And football's often built on profiles and partnerships, and I've got no doubt that they all bring their individual qualities. So I want to hear from you guys. Out of those 3 players, which is your preference? Let's put money aside. If you had one choice to sign any of those 3 players, who would it be? Let me know in the comments below. But before you leave, don't forget to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and comment any players you want me to include in the next series. And until next time, away the lads.